Not all media programming is bad. In fact, we need myth to orientate ourselves, to find our way in the world, to bring a meaning and higher wisdom. It's from our bloodlines encapsulated through the ages, all the wisdom of our folk coming down into these stories. A good myth can really empower you. It can impart knowledge on how to act in the world. But a bad myth, a bad story can weaken you. It can impart false wisdom and you will act in a negative way in this world. And so it really depends on the intent of the myth maker. They are spellcasters, they're wizards, they're trying to do something to their audience. It's a act of will against the masses. And this act of will, for most of us, has been done by people who aren't our allies, of course, but some good things have come out. Bronze Core, the 2000s Bronze Core, I'm a big fan of that. Okay. Troy, 300, Achilles in Troy was, it really did encapsulate an aesthetic that brought our history to light. Alexander, again, of course, an Irishman played Alexander the Great. Who is more better to play Alexander the Great than an Irishman, of course? Kingdom of Heaven, these movies, again, they were great. There was something really empowering about them. Really, it brought our history to light, to the forefront. It took a narrative of heroic action against all odds. 300, by the way, a lot of people don't like 300. They think it's corny. 300 is actually one of the most historically accurate movies of all time. Okay, maybe it didn't get all the details right, but you know what it got right? It got the fact that cryptids and human animal hybrids were real in history, and it brought those to the forefront. It's all hidden in plain sight. There used to be cryptids running around all the time, and 300, they weren't afraid to go there. They brought that to light. Something about the Bronze Core of the 2000s, and you can kind of see a revival of that within today. All these reels, all these edits made of these movies. It doesn't matter if it was 100% correct. What matters is the aesthetics. What matters is the message. What matters is the end goal of what that movie was supposed to be about. Another great one. Oh, of course, I missed Gladiator. Gladiator is just such a beautiful movie. It truly is a masterpiece. Strength and honor. And I don't see anything negative in a movie like Gladiator. I'd much rather have young guys watch Gladiator and Troy and 300 than watch some of these slot movies. And you kind of see this in the modern era too. When was the last movie about our history? That was good. That hit a heroic resurgence. That hit the solar Hyperborean hero's journey. Those are completely gone, but they were still around when we were growing up. And now I can't think of anything. I only see inversion and mockery. Lord of the Rings, again, was mocked in that newest iteration. Whereas the Lord of the Rings trilogy in the 2000s, in the early 2000s, I honestly think that movie was divine intervention by the gods because it came at a time when, sure, you had some of these other movies and they were all kind of coexisting together and emerging together, but still the culture was, there was kind of a still of a strange hedonistic nihilism about the 2000s. And yet these movies prove that there was still a yearning for something higher, that high art, that idealism, that meaning and truth and the history of our people still mattered at some level. And that's why it so deeply resonated. And we were so fortunate as millennials to grow up with movies like Lord of the Rings. I think Lord of the Rings did more for our blood spirit than any like pamphlet or book or novel or could ever do. Could ever do, really. I honestly think there's something more to it than just this director wanted to make this movie. So many things came together to pull that off for all of us. And I am eternally grateful for it. So we all take in programming, we all take in, it just depends whether we're being fed gems or are we being fed slop. And right now, like the mainstream is complete slop. I can only really consume things on YouTube. And I think there's no shame in consuming media because that's what we do as human beings. Before, it was the campfire telling stories. Then it became theater plays. Then it became movie reels. And now it's YouTube and gaming rants. And you know what? That's just the new medium. I'm just adapting to it. I'm okay with it because I'd rather watch gaming rants about something than watch whatever's on Netflix. Okay. I flipped it on. I don't even want to talk about what I saw. I'm still reeling from it. I can't even put it into words. It's too disturbing. Maybe we'll talk about it some other time. But there is a value, I think, in mythic escapism. I would much rather have the younger generation play Civilization or Total War than take classes on history from mainstream teachers because there's just so much in those games that you learn about your own people and your own history and how the world really functions in a lot of ways. Somebody asked me about my fantasy programming and my MMORPG programming. I never played MMORPGs. I played a little bit of Lord of the Rings Online, not much though. I didn't get far at all. Maybe level 10. And I played a little bit of Star Wars Galaxies, but again, I didn't get far. But I had lots of friends who played World of Warcraft. And some of my friends were deeply closeted World of Warcraft players, like deeply closeted because they were ashamed of playing it and because of all the negative stereotypes involved with it. And, you know, honestly, some of the best people I've ever met, some of the most trustworthy people, some of those honorable people, some of the most people who are able to work well in a team were and or are former World of Warcraft players. And I think it's because they learned a lot of team management and interpersonal skills trying to run through those raids together. than people who just watched, you know, whatever was on cable all day. And then those people act like they're better than the World of Warcraft players. Okay. I mean, like, and the whole World of Warcraft, neckbeard, like either obese or just like completely limp wristed stereotype, I think was completely shattered by Henry Cavill. I'm pretty sure he was on a World of Warcraft raid when he got the call that he was going to be Superman. And I think he's doing a lot of good things. You know, he tried to save The Witcher, but he couldn't. And now he's working on 40K, which I think will be really good. So again, that's some more media I will probably consume. I will be brainwashed by 40K, which I think is a good thing, by the way. And so video games can, I think, teach you. That's how bad it is. That's how bad schooling is. That's how bad the culture is. That people will and can learn better skills from gaming. And I don't think, like the problem I see, the only really issue I see with WoW is just the complete time sink that people have put into it. But I mean, people can do what they want to do in their lives at the end of the day. And that's just the way it is. Is it more degenerate to be a World of Warcraft player, or is it more degenerate to be like one of these soy try guys? I don't know. I've just met a lot of gems who played that game, and but sure, fantasy programming. What is fantasy programming? It's you are. What is fantasy? What is it? Fantasy is just the mythology of our ancestors. That's what it is. There's nothing fantastical about it at all. It's what people only 1,000 years ago believed. They're not that far removed from you. Fantasy is typically just Norse mythology repackaged, and it still resonates with all of us because that's in our blood memory, and we are reliving it through different mediums. Or like, I mean, World of Warcraft is very Nordic in a way, and I don't really have that big of an issue with it. You know, I think of course it all comes to your own goals in life. I I can't get into the grinding aspect. Grinding for me hurts. It's painful. It feels like work. I want to leisure max, and when I'm leisuring, I don't want my leisure to turn into a chore. So I like mostly strategy. I like a lot of, these slasher games. Just I think it's better for background than do you really want me to watch me manage my total war settlements? I think it's a bit much. But a really good story, and my favorite story of all time, is the Volsunga saga or the Nibelunge, as done by Wagner. Because this story, it resonates the most with me because the fall of the Aero Hyperboreans in the story, the solar hero that is Sigurd or Siegfried, depending on the iteration, it's not from without. It comes from within. It comes from their own greed, their own malice, their own corruption. Everything now is blamed on outside forces. It's blamed on somebody casting a spell on us, and us, we can't resist the spell. and we fall to the spell. But what the Nebelunga teaches us is that at the end of the day, we take the bait. We accept the corruption. There's still a choice in the matter. Especially if you're a Gigaborian hyperpsychic. You have a lot more free will than an NPC. So, depending on where you fall on the spectrum of free will, because I think it's spectrum. I don't think it's just either you have it or you don't. I think people have more than others, and a lot of people have less than others to the point where they pretty much have none. So it's a spectrum. And the Nebelungen, they fall from within, they rot from within, they betray each other. Okay, Sigrid, he kills the dragon. And some iterations he eats the dragon's heart, and in other times he bathes in the dragon's blood. I like the dragon blood bathing because it reminds me of Achilles when he's bathed, and there's only one spot where he isn't bathed, and that's his tendon, and that's his weakness. Same with Siegfried. He's bathed in the blood, but the back of his nape is not covered by the blood, and that's his weak point. And so there's a correlation here between these two stories with a weakness that's not covered by blood, a vulnerability. And that vulnerability to me seems like it's pride, Luciferian pride or hubris. When you no longer think you can do wrong, when you think that you're uncorruptible, and then you lose self-reflection, and then you fall to that, which I think that's what that story is about. It's a fall from within, and I think that's something a lot of people don't want to look at, as they don't ever want to examine what's going on in their own folkdom, their own clan, and everybody just wants to blame outside forces, which of course is always a factor. And I think the real dark truth of the outside forces is that there's about 5,000 different factions who don't like you, not just one. So there is that. It's a really good story. I think everybody should read it. It's really hidden. It's one of the most hidden, like you don't really hear people talking about it, but I think it's one of the most important, if not the most important story out of Germanic lore that anybody could learn from. I think it's more important than Beowulf. I do. I think the Beowulf story is again one of my favorites, but the Nibelungen, the Volsung saga, I think is up there for sure. And I think there's one movie that was done in the 2000s on it, but again, it doesn't get as much. It was a very low budget movie in comparison to all the Beowulf movies. And I think maybe we can do some more deep dives into it. Because again, the Lord of the Rings, people say it's based, like the Lord of the Rings is based off of the Volsung saga. And of course, there are elements of it because there's the ring. But within the Lord of the Rings, it's very dualistic. It's good versus evil. There's the big baddie, the mustache twirling villain who is Sauron. And whereas the Volsung is it's more entwined with each other. And of course, it has a way more tragic ending. And I am a sucker for tragic endings, okay? I mean, yeah. Brunhilde. Very sad ending. But that's the thing about myth is that it teaches you, if done properly, it teaches you or it gives you something to meditate on. It gives you something to reflect on. That's what a good story should do. A good story should leave you reflecting on the meaning of that story. And originally with this channel, I wanted it to be more of media decoding, hidden symbolism, predictive programming type of stuff, but it's so hard to get clips on and not get it, struck down or whatever. It's very hard to do it. So you'd have to do it with stills now, I think, which I could probably do. And I'm looking into some tales. I really want to look at the Dark Crystal because I really think that Dark Crystal is about loosh farming and how we're all being loosh farmed by Skeksis. But in today's media landscape, and I think they kind of figure this out with gaming. I really do, because gaming has really lost its charm. There were so many, like even Halo was like a heroic journey. There was something Faustian about Halo. A lot of these games were very Faustian, like an epic, unimaginable struggle against unimaginable odds and overcoming those odds and bringing glory to your people and now again, I think the spellcasters clued into what was going on with video games and there was like these really esoteric video games too. And they really clamped down on it. And to the point now where gaming is terrible. Like new games are terrible. Absolutely terrible. And they again, it was such a niche thing that you could get away with so much, and now it's become so mass produced and it's got this massive industry, the biggest industry. And again, they have to bring it down to the mass man and to the mass market. And that's why the quality has gone down. Even the Total War series, like the Total War series is going through its own Kali Yuga. Like the mechanics were so in depth. You could do all these amazing formations and there was all these strategies and tactics involved. And now it's just like, you just get two blobs and you just ram into each other. It's really bad now. It's really bad now. I mean, that's the thing. Like the quality of everything goes down in the Kali, the Iron Age. And it's reflected in even gaming, even movies, TV shows. The ultimate rug pull of all time was Game of Thrones. That movie, that TV show, season 1, 2, 3 were really top quality. And then as the 2010s progressed, it got worse and worse until the point where people are teleporting all across the world. Like, I don't know what they're using. They're hearthing and bubbling. They're using instances. They're using hearthstones. They're fast traveling all over the map. And it's just terrible, terrible storytelling. But I think the whole point of Game of Thrones was to rug pull audiences. I really do. I think that was George R.R. Martin's intentions all along. I think I think he hates European history. I think he hates European aesthetics. I think he hates all the epic European tropes. And I think his mission all along was to turn all of those tropes on their head. And I think that's why he laughs so much and giggles like a freak all the time, because he takes delight in what he's done. There was one, I read the books and a lot was missing, but there was one story in the books where there's noble, I think he's like an off branch of the Targaryens. There was like a whole like off branch side quest going on where they were going to, or maybe they were Blackfires, they were going to retake the throne. There was a whole nother faction that got cut. And maybe it was him. But somebody fought a dragon anyway. And instead of slaying the dragon like he was supposed to, he just gets toasted alive, which I think is mocking Sigurd and Beowulf, because the dragon slaying story is one of the most sacred and common stories within the Indo-European mythology, because I think it's the solar hero overcoming the chthonic greed of the dragon is what that represents. And of course, George R. R. Martin is going to hate that story. I don't know. The guy he's got some issues, that's for sure. And yeah, so I think he hated it all. And so I think he just wanted to kick down the sandcastle of all fantasy and pervert it and mock it, which was the entire thing. But at first, of course, he draws you in. He's a wonderful spellcaster, isn't he? He draws you in. He crafts. He knows it in and out. He knows what draws people in. You know, the North and wolves, and he knows what we like, dragon riders. And then he just flipped it all on its head, and people are like, "Oh, well, I think the end novels will be better. I think they'll fix what D&D did." I don't think so. I think it'll probably be worse what he will do, what he will pull out. And I don't think he will even finish it anymore, because I don't even think, again, him not finishing the novels proves that he didn't actually care about his story. He just knew what the template was to get people hooked, and then he wanted to make as much money as possible. And since he made his bank, now he doesn't care about what happens at the end. That's my little Game of Thrones breakdown, because it could have been really good. It could have been really good, but he crashed it. And I think it was on purpose. A lot of these new series now are just set them up, hook, line, and sinker, get the people hooked, and the people are waiting and they want to see like some sort of higher truth manifest or higher meaning, and they see all the things that are unfolding, and then they will just completely rug pull the audience, make fun of them, mock them, denigrate the hero, denigrate the typical Indo-European myth, the typical Hyperborean myth, and then just stomp all over it and laugh at the audience as they do so. It's also kind of a way of them loosh farming audience. I mean, the amount of loosh they got out of people when they made that final season of Game of Thrones is probably just unbelievable. Like the amount of loosh they were just feasting off of them, it just must have been a loosh feast. Just terrible. Yeah. So where do you find? I was talking to this with my friend, and he's like, I have a YouTube addiction. I just watch YouTube all day, but how do I use this? How do I use this to find to like empower me? Because yeah, I think a lot of us have, like, a lot of people have, I wouldn't say addiction, but a lot of us spend a lot of time consuming media, and it's just like, okay, well, you can use that for your own benefit. You can watch things that empower you, that teach you, that give you some sort of aim in life, rather than watch things that mock you, that hate you, that want to see you be denigrated. So I think YouTube is I think we're at a point now, and especially people are talking about this new update and people not being, suppressed anymore. And there's the hype system, I think, and the hype system is helping people that were not getting exposure before. I think you can kind of, and that's kind of the thing about the algo, and that's why they really want to clamp down and control this algo, because I think you can program your own algo to kind of vilify you and empower you. And you can, because now, like, all I see is this redhead girl talk about history. That's like my whole feed now. My whole feed is Eva Schubert talking about the Mongols and the Inquisition, and it's great. It's epic. I'm learning a lot from Eva Schubert, okay? And so, um, yeah, like that's kind of the thing where you can benefit from, where you can ride the tiger. I just have some it's not perfect, but it's just like it's better than Netflix. Like I'm still getting fed. Like the slop algorithm is still in the corners, prying their deadly eyes at me, wanting me to go down these rabbit holes. But I think now, and that's the and here's the thing too, is that the the powers that be also can suffer from this Nebelungen Volsung symptoms, because their own greed, right? They knew that they were missing out on millions, if not billions of dollars of revenue if they wanted to continue to suppress certain topics on YouTube, right? And the greed, I think, got the better of them, because now a lot of these hidden topics are coming to the forefront on YouTube, and they can't help but profit off of it. They love it. They need the profit. So will the profit be the final undoing? We will see. But it is kind of funny that there's just too much money to be made, and I think that's why things are different now. The worst era of YouTube was during what, 2019 to 2022. That was awful. Everything in my feed had a check mark. Everything I searched, it was just a page of check marks. And it's not like that anymore. Because I think there's just not enough money to be made. I don't know. I don't think that's all of it, but there's something going on to it. I'm trying to figure it out, but let me know what you think about it. Maybe there's something else to it. But again, with the whole empowerment thing and leveling up and vril maxing or whatever you want to call it, like it's not the same for everybody. Not everybody is going to be this David. I don't even want to use, like, that's a negative. I think that whole like rise and grinding thing, but not everybody's meant to be like this ubermensch, gym bro, bronze age warrior. Everybody has their own kind of cast. I'm a proponent that I think people should really double down on their cast instead of trying to multi-class. So if you're more of an intellectual Brahmana type, that's just what you are. That's your calling. You don't have to be a gym bro. You don't have to be a blue collar guy. Like, you're a intellectual. That's like your thing. You should be proud to be that because that's what you're born to be. Same with Kisetrias. If you're more of a martial artist, martial guy, action, transcendence through action, why do you need to be an intellectual? You know, you should trust your gut. You should be more grug. You should be more in your body. Because that's just, I think that's how people are. Because I see these, I have pattern recognition. I can see these archetypes manifest. You know, there's the merchant class. They're going to be good at business. That's just what they are. Okay? I know a lot of these types. They make their ducats copulate, and that's just what they do. They're really good at it. They just have a knack for it. You know, people have a knack for things. People have these innate orientations that point them towards a path. I think that's what everybody has to figure out is like, what is your caste? And the Sudras, the workers, there's no shame in being that. Because in the caste system, okay, and the sacred caste system, the Sudras are still one of the sacred, there's 4 sacred castes, and there's the people underneath with the no castes, and that's like way worse. So just because you're a worker doesn't mean it's bad. Like lots of guys need to have like a company or like a job to do because not everybody is a business guy. Not everybody's meant to be a business mogul. Not everybody's meant to be an intellectual. There's a whole cast out there of people who like to work with their hands, who excel in those types of environments. It's not, it's honorable. It's part of the honorable caste system. It's the people who are not part of any caste. That's like the bad people, the no honor people. They're not in the sacred order of Hyperborea. And what media does is it tells everybody that there's no caste and that everybody can be whatever they want. And there's no like sacred stories of people going through their own hero's journey within their own caste. Like everybody has to become some like super Kshatriya action hero or some sort of, you know, super intellectual. But not everyone's like that. And that's okay. Not everyone is going to want to read about Hyperborea and delve into it and intuit it through runes. Okay? That's not happening for everybody. And that's okay. Sometimes it's better just to be what your own path is. And that can be empowering in a way. Again, like nobody wants to celebrate the other castes. You know, the business cast, like there is value in the merchant class, the business class. We need those types of people to, it's always been part of the order. It's just now it's inverted, right? It's completely inverted, and now the merchant class is the top of the pyramid instead of the. Now there's debate on who should be at the top, and Evola and Guano had. This is where they had a big disagreement. This is where they diverge, and this is why I'm more of a Evolian type of fan than follower or admirer than Guano. is because Evola thought that the sacred god, king, emperor of mankind, followed by the warrior noble Kshatriyas, should be at the top. Okay, he was more 40K in his orientation and his worldview. Okay, just think God, Emperor of Mankind. Read Warhammer. I mean, if you don't want to read Evola, you can just read Warhammer, and it's basically the same thing. Okay. But Guano thought that the top of the pyramid should be the Brahmanas, or the priestly class. And I would have to go on the side of Evola on this one, and agree that it should be the God Emperor, who is also a hybrid multi-class between the Brahmana and the Kshatriya. He is the priest king, sort of like what Paul Atreides is. Paul Atreides and Dune is very Evolian, and we could probably do a bigger breakdown on that. But the sacred psychic, okay, and also there is a separation, because he does talk about how the Kshatriya class is inherently psychic, and there is divinity within the flesh. There's a higher power there that only comes about when they go through the initiation of that caste. And if they're not initiated, then they're not empowered with the Veerd, and therefore they're on the same level as a Sudra until they go through that initiation. And us living in the now, of course, we can't find someone to initiate us. We have to go through self-initiation, which I'm a big proponent of. I don't believe in joining groups. I don't believe in joining orders. I don't believe in joining any of that stuff, because the very nature of the time that we're in now, the very nature of the vibrational input, leads to these types of things collapsing and corrupting from within. And I've seen it over and over and over again. So I'm also, again, that's another thing. I mean, I don't, it's hard for me to find things I disagree with him on. There's a few things, but self-initiation is definitely one. And the God King Emperor, of course. I mean, he shall return. He shall return. But again, now media tells us it's the merchant class who should be on top. Okay, the bourgeoisie. The yuppie is the highest orientation that you can achieve in life. There's no glory beyond yuppiedom. Yuppiedom is the epitome of all that one can aspire for in today's world. That is the prevailing narrative. If you're not a yuppie, then there's something wrong with you. But of course, many of us are just there. We're not supposed to be yuppies. We're not part of the yuppie caste, but we're all being pressured that we have to ascend to yuppiedom, otherwise we're defective. And that's where a lot of our cognitive dissonance comes from, because we have to deal with this false narrative about our own life path. And so I think that, in conclusion, programming is always going to be there. And I think the way around it now is being first cognizantly aware that there is programming, and then making the conscious effort to reprogram yourself. But of course, you're going to have to find out what programming you need for yourself, because you can't rely on authorities and templates in this day and age. All right. Thanks for watching, guys, and we'll see you next time. Strike and honor.